Jainism can be traced back to the 6th century BCE in India. The name is derived from the term Jina, which means conquerors. The religion is defined by its 24 Tirthankaras, namely the last Tirthankara, Mahavira, who was the founder of Jainism and lived between 599 and 527 BCE in northern India. The beliefs and practices of Jainism are thought to have ties with the earlier Vedic cultures of the Indus River Valley in India. It is also believed that Jainism was already flourishing as a religion before Buddhism was recognized. In some views, Jainism is considered a more radical religion in India, following strict guidelines related to non-harm and minimal material possessions, if any. Once a very popular religion, primarily among the merchant castes in ancient India, it is now more of a minority religion compared to the more popular Hinduism and Buddhism religions. Buddhism and Jainism have a long intertwined history. Several accounts of debates between the Buddha and converted Jain ascetics to Buddhism have been recorded, called suttas. The first is the Devadaha Sutta, where the Buddha debates about the Jain concept of clearing old karma. The Buddha, as he interrogates the Naganthas, he makes the point that if all pleasure and pain experienced in the present were determined by past action, why is it that they now feel the pain of harsh treatment when they practice asceticism, and no pain of harsh treatment when they don't? If past action were the sole determining factor, then present action should have no effect on their present experience of pleasure or pain, meaning that pain and suffering should not be inevitable. The second point addressed in this sutta is about putting an end to pain and suffering. The Buddha refutes the method of the ascetics by stating that if the cause of present suffering was located exclusively in the past, no one could do anything in the present moment to stop that suffering. The most that could be done would be to endure the suffering while not creating any new karma, leading to future suffering. The Buddha then provides an account of how the Buddhist approach to ending pain and suffering through meditation is more attainable because pain and suffering are not the result of past action, but present passion and desires. He is explaining that pain and suffering aren't inevitable, whereas the Jain ascetics believe that pain and suffering are byproducts of both positive and negative action and therefore can't be avoided. Through these debates, it's logical that many of the qualities associated with Buddhism in India were derived from Jainism. The interaction between Siddhartha Gautama the Buddha and Upali, a chief disciple of Mahavira, is another example of the two religions' numerous interactions. Upali was originally an ascetic who had grown up in the lowest rank of the caste system in India. As an ascetic, he had heard the Buddha teach the Dhamma and requested to become one of his followers. This interaction is recorded in the Sathusasana Sutta, wherein then Upali went to the Blessed One, and on arrival, having bowed down to him, sat to one side. As he was sitting there, he said to the Blessed One, "It would be good, Lord, if the Blessed One would teach me the Dhamma in brief such that, having heard the Dhamma from the Blessed One, I might dwell alone, secluded, heedful, ardent, and resolute." The Buddha accepted with the condition that Upali would continue to give alms to the ascetic monks and maintain some aspects of the Jain religion. There are other similarities between Jainism and Buddhism, such as that Mahavira and Gautama practiced asceticism prior to reaching enlightenment. Both Mahavira and Gautama were born into the warrior caste system in India and therefore had similar beginnings. Both Jainism and Buddhism contain no views on creation. Rather, both religions hold the belief that a beginning is impossible to know. Both religions reject India's caste system based on where an individual is born. Jainism and Buddhism both have a fourfold assembly of how their followers are dispersed. In both religions, there is a category of nuns, monks, laymen, and laywomen. Additionally, enlightenment is the ultimate goal for both religions and is essentially reached in the same way with pure conduct and meditation. The main difference between Buddhism and Jainism, however, is each religion's views on what constitutes a sentient being. A sentient being is anything that contains a soul. Typically, Jain ascetics have a stricter guide in determining what contains a soul, whereas Buddhists are more lenient. Jain ascetics hold the belief that a sentient being extends to include things such as root plants, rocks, microorganisms, soil, and so on. This is a frequent debate among members of both religions whether plants should be considered sentient or non-sentient, and science has comprised extensive research to support the former. Plants, like other sentient beings, contain a circulating nervous system, and therefore they can feel pain. As for movement, plants do move, and they do so with intention. A plant flowers, orients its leaves to follow the light, goes into sleep mode, and even plays. Furthermore, not only do plants engage in neuron-like activity and movement, they make mathematical computations, see us, and, like animals that act altruistically, show kindness toward their relatives. They are able to recognize themselves and communicate with animals and other plants via alluring airborne fragrances and a diverse repertoire of chemical compounds exuded through their roots. Buddhists typically follow a vegetarian diet, but there are exceptions to this rule. The rule of thumb is that Buddhists accept anything placed in their begging bowl. The exceptions to this rule include if an animal was killed specifically for the Buddhist, or if the Buddhist was present during the killing of the animal. Buddhists also try to limit other animal products such as milk and eggs, but again, whatever is placed in their bowl will typically be eaten. With this newfound research, however, a moral dilemma may present itself for followers of Buddhism. If Buddhists consider this research, then by upholding a vegetarian diet, the goal of enlightenment would be influenced. Contributing to the harm of sentient beings, even plants, would inflict negative karma and continue the cycle of rebirth for the Buddhist. The moral dilemma may push Buddhists to enact a stricter diet, much more similar to that of the Jain ascetic diet. Additionally, it may not be that significant of a change for Buddhists, since it is theorized that the vegetarian diet was a modification to an earlier belief. Some earlier Buddhists were thought to have considered plants a borderline sentient being, and therefore plants may have been restricted as well for a period of time. In conclusion, there are many similarities between Jains and Buddhists that could be used to argue the theory that Buddhism originally stems from Jainism. The contributions of the Jain community are invaluable, and their beliefs towards classifying sentient and non-sentient beings are parallel with modern scientific views, making their beliefs that much more relatable. However, it is clear that some aspects of Jainism have contributed to its current minority status. Fewer people in modern society are willing to sacrifice all material possessions to follow an exceedingly austere life wrought with unavoidable pain and suffering. Even so, the purpose of this video is to show the unique characteristics of both religions, their history and early interactions, and how their beliefs find a place in the changing world.